The event is celebrating a book titled Ruth Lynford, My Life in Design. The author of the book, Marlene Berkman, the graphic designer, Kiku Obata, are also here from St. Louis.
Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me back there? Looks like hello, hello. There's some grandchildren and kind of lovely people in this room. This is really cool. And I have to tell you, I am so energized by Ruth. Every time she comes near me, I feel like I'm her grandmother. I mean, I can't believe this woman, what she's able to do. Sashi, come up here. And it's really, really inspiring on so many levels. And so we're going to talk about her beginnings and about her life and about her work. But what I'd like to start out with, I just want to make sure that everyone gets this beautiful and very inspiring book. And I'm actually wondering, when is the film script being written? And who's going to play you? Susan Lucci. Susan Lucci is great. That's a great one.
I would all like to tell you that the author is here.
The author is here. Hi.
The graphic designer is here, and she wrote the foreword of the book.
Well, all the celebrities are here. Well, thank you so much for doing a great job. And of course, Ruth's story is the story of an incredible life. So what I'd like to start with, actually, is Ruth is always so incredibly straightforward. She says, well, you know, I'm 88 and a half. So, and I'm thinking, no, you're not. You're like 50. And so...
I want to just interrupt. There's a little girl here, 7 years old. Elena, do you just want to stand up a minute? We had our photograph, the youngest and the eldest in this room.
Oh, lovely. Lovely. Thank you for being here. So what I'd like to start let's start with the local. Let's start with your professional and your advocacy activities, because I think you have been more instrumental in creating a place for interior designers than anyone else we know of. And I think I'd love for you to start talking about what have you been working on with New York with the New York State Legislature, and how is that going?
Never ending.
Never ending.
It started over 25 years ago, and I'm still up in Albany. If Patricia Lynch is here, raise your hand.
There she is.
She's our lobbyist, and she knows I have been up in Albany for 25 years. Is Oliver Coppell? Yes. Come over here, Oliver. These are the people that had to do with creating a profession, interior design profession, which became, just sit here, Oliver, please.
Oh, Michael. He's here. You were looking for him.
Okay, Michael, over here.
She's going to have you.
Now, these are the individuals that worked with me endlessly to have interior design become the 33rd profession in New York State in 1990. And I'll tell you, the reason Patricia is here, she is now helping us in some new legislation that will be hopefully passed, right, Patricia? By June, yes, when the legislature is over. It's where interior designers, licensed interior designers, we call them certified, will be able to take their drawings to the building department. They will not have to go through an architect or through an engineer. They'll go straight to the building department to get a certificate of occupancy. So let's hope that is passed. Now I have to live to see a true Practice Act. It's a partial Practice Act. We're amending the original law, Oliver, that was passed in 1980. Enough.
Yeah, so how are the architects taking this?
Never well. And I have a son-in-law a stepson here is architect.
Where are you?
Right there. Another gentleman. I have lots of architects. As you know, I have a degree in architecture with her father, Kiku's father, who founded HOK, Helmuth, Obata, and Kassabaum. Gio Obata, her father, is the only one of HOK that is still alive. And he's a year older than I am. He's 89.
And he looks great, by the way. What did you guys drink when you were in architecture school?
So I have a lot of architects.
That's great. I mean, we have to be friends.
But I will be honest. The architects that have objected are the individual practitioners, mostly in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Susan, it's been a turf battle. They felt threatened. The downstate architects really are not opposing it.
Yeah, I understand those little minds in the big state. Okay, we're not going to go there. I went there already, I'm sorry. So why don't let's talk about the people that have been involved with. Can you kind of say a few words about Michael Garabedian, please?
Oh, yes. Here is Michael, who flew in from California. Oliver, you should know him. Michael Garabedian was Oliver Coppell's key staff person in 1990. They were the ones, Oliver turned me over to Michael. Oliver sat with me in the wee hours of the time we were going to go into the assembly and into the Senate. He sat with me. No one else was with me. He sat with me 7 o'clock in the morning when the gavel went down, when Senator Kenneth Laval very earnestly spoke on our behalf. This gentleman, however, spoke eloquently in the assembly. But at 7 o'clock in the morning, the gavel went down. The only one with me was Michael Garabedian. And the first person I went out to a public telephone was Kerwin. I said, Kerwin, we've got a law. It's a miracle. And tears still come down my face.
It's a huge accomplishment. I mean, you have never, ever given up. It is a lesson for all of us in this room and beyond. How do you stay focused? So that your focus is laser sharp. It's amazing. So talk a little bit about Kerwin Kettler.
Kerwin is a scholar. He would, at the time we started on this journey, Kerwin was the dean of the New York School of Interior Design. He wrote 2.5 inches of a document that allowed us to get our foot in the door. Once he read it, he said, okay, we'll consider it. I don't think Neville Lewis is here, but Neville Lewis had the largest interior design firm at the time in New York City. We had Alan Siegel at one end of a long table, I was at the other, and the first thing he said to me, and what are your credentials?
I'm a housewife.
No, I wasn't a housewife. Yes, I have 4 children who are here. No. I said, I have a degree in architecture from Washington University, and that's all I said, and he went on to everybody else around the table. And Neville Lewis did speak, and the important thing, Neville Lewis, in interior design, he had 120 on staff. He told of a project he did in Colorado where he was the first one to be hired. He then hired the architect. Anyway, we then took Alan Siegel into the drafting room, saw 120 people working at very complicated drawings, and agreed to consider our bill.
That's
It
fantastic.
was because Kerwin, and Kerwin was with me every inch. He went to Albany every time. He went with me when we went to see Oliver. I'm sorry to say, we had to give up grandparenting or grandfathering. We had to we had to require the NCIDQ exam, but Oliver saw us to the end. Michael worked. Here are the people.
So can you say a little bit more about what Oliver's role in all of this was? Is he a lawyer? Who is this
I
man?
don't know. Are you a lawyer? You'll have to speak for yourself.
Of course you are. Why did I
was
know?
the state legislator. I was the assembly.
Yeah, you were the
He was the assemblyman.
Oh, I
was the
got it.
sponsor of the legislation.
I got it.
He was Oliver was the sponsor of our bill in the Assembly.
Okay.
In the Senate, it was Kenneth Laval. I'm sorry, he's not here tonight. But Oliver speaks very eloquently. The bill,
Clearly he's a politician.
let me tell you, the bill
Very good.
passed, our bill passed in the Assembly at midnight. You and Ed Sullivan, who was in higher ed at the time, had already adjourned. In order for me to even be considered in the Senate, I had to get a handwritten note that it passed in the Assembly. You were nowhere to be found. But I found Ed Sullivan, who in handwriting wrote the fact that the bill passed in the Assembly 12 midnight. Then from 12 o'clock midnight until 7 in the morning. And I tell you, that was awful. I don't know if you know, in the legislature, they have the agendas. Every so often, a new agenda comes out. Michael and I were waiting for our bill to get on the agenda. Close to 7 o'clock in the morning, I called our lobbyist at the time was Jack Bronston of Davidoff and Melito. He called someone, I don't know who he called, and we got our bill on the last agenda before the legislature adjourned. 7 o'clock in the morning. He sat with me in the Senate upstairs in the balcony, because we couldn't be down on the floor, when Senator Laval, not nearly as eloquent as you, spoke on our behalf. 7 o'clock, the gavel went down. We had a law. I ran to the phone and called Kerwin.
That is so cool. That is so cool. I mean, I just think that that's fantastic. It's like the perils of Pauline. Most of you are too young to know. It's a silent film. I'm not old enough for a silent film, but I watched them. And anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about people. So when you and Hans Creeks were the alter egos for Pierre Cardin, which we kind of didn't know. I think Hans kind of let it out because he babbled a little bit. But you didn't. We never knew that you were involved. Yeah, we didn't know.
God, I was the one that made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was so cool. It was such a big collection. Let's talk about working
In
with.
the book, there
Yeah.
is a chapter where. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. I was the ghost designer with Hans Creeks of the Pierre Cardin collection called. He wanted to enter. He called it the home environment. We designed everything: case goods, upholstered furniture, rugs, lighting, fabrics. We dealt directly with Cardin in Paris. We had to go 4 times a year showing our designs to Cardin to saying yes or no. Cardin sent me to Denmark for carpet, yarns, but everything was really manufactured in the United States. He sent me to Italy. He sent me all over the world. Finally, in April of 1977, we had an opening in High Point, North Carolina, of Pierre Cardin's home environment, all his furnishings. But of course, Hans and I were the ghost designers. That's the story.
Right.
And see, not all the things, some of the pieces we designed are in the book, and you'll see everything says Pierre Cardin. Doesn't say Ruth Lynford or Hans Creeks. I'm sorry, Hans Creeks died, shortly after the opening in High Point.
Yeah. I mean, this was a huge collection. It was obviously needed to express the Cardin brand. So, how was it working with him? Was he kind of generous or mean, or what was he like?
No. Cardin was a sweetheart. He was very calm, quiet. In fact, I'm going to Paris. I don't know where my oldest granddaughter is, over there, in August. And Cardin is still alive. He's about a year older than I am. I'm going to call him and say, I'd like to come and have lunch. I have a book, and he knows about the book, doesn't he? We had difficulty getting permission to use the photographs, even though he wasn't the designer. It has his name on it. But Cardin was a sweetheart. We met in his office 4 times a year, and he came to High Point. His furnishings, I have to tell you, are antique items now. A chest of drawers that I think sold at B. Altman's for about $500. A picture of it is in the book.
Yeah.
Now is for $15,000. But I want to tell you, I was paid on royalties. I made more money in 5 years in royalties than I have ever done in my practice. So if you can design and get royalties, do it.
So that's really interesting. So have you thought of doing these kind of branding exercises with other names, or was it what you were? I mean, you're always onto something interesting and new.
I wasn't on something else.
Yeah.
New York 11.
New York 11. Okay, New York 11. Now let's talk about New York 11 Plus. What's going on there?
Well, the coordinator, where is Cassandra? Somewhere around here, I hope. Cassandra, raise your hand.
She's back there.
Back there. Oh, Cassandra Ramirez is the coordinator for New York 11 Plus. About 16 years ago, I was invited to the United Nations. Is Diane Davis here? I was there with an architect who was an instructor of interior design at Pratt. And it was a wonderful 2-day conference where there was a competition of architects about aging. And I turned to the architect from Pratt and I said, "Where is the interior designer?" And he said, "Well, Ruth, if you really want to find anything, go see Diane Davis. She is the founder of, what is the title of the organization, ICCC?
What does that mean? International Council for Caring Communities.
International
Council for Caring Communities.
Which
Okay.
also is an NGO at the United Nations. I went to her. She said, "Well, Ruth, if you want it, do it." Well, it's waving a red flag. So I called the chairs of 6 interior design schools downstate, and I said, "I'd like to have breakfast with you at the United Nations." Well, of course, the United Nations was the key word. They all showed up. They all knew me from legislation. So I told them about this conference, and they said, yes, they'd like to participate, but they didn't want a competition. These were all, except for one, were all private schools. They wanted an exhibition. So we had the 6 downstate schools. The first year, we attended the conference. I had the schools, a student representative from each of the schools speak at the conference discussing the project. Outside, we had their work exhibited for a week. Next year, they invited us for 2 years. The third year, we were invited for the lobby of the United Nations. The ribbon was cut. Who was the woman of the moon? The Secretary General. Yeah, she came when we had it in the lobby, looked at all the work, spoke about it, because I think art is her background. Helped us cut the ribbon. We always had a reception afterwards. Well, at that time, the downstate schools students said they'd like to invite the upstate. Cornell, Syracuse, all the upstate schools. So we contacted them. They were interested, but they didn't want to come down to Manhattan. They wanted to go to Albany. So we've had now, for the last number of years, an exhibition of the student work in Albany, and then we bring it to New York. Now, New York 11 came about, that name came about, because when I started upstate, there were 11 prestigious educational institutions that had a 4-year or more program in interior design. Now, there is a 12th school in New York State. So rather than changing the name, we have it New York 11 Plus. So every spring, in fact, it was just in March, we exhibited in the schools, the students exhibited their work in Albany. And I'll tell you why that's important to me. We were able to educate the legislators about what interior design is. It is not decorating. Decorating is not licensed. I'm not putting it down because I do decorating, part of my work. But it is, I would say interior designers make things look pretty. Lovely fabrics, lovely colors. Interior designers are problem solvers. They can move interior non-bearing walls, drop ceilings, a much more complicated knowledge of, they have to know the codes, and they are the ones that we work to get licensed. But it's to educate the legislators in Albany what interior design is all about, also exposing them to the student work. So I accomplished 2 things. The 2 organizations that I founded, one for legislation, one for education, take place in Albany. Then just last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday, we brought the student work down into Manhattan at a showroom. That's New York 11.
So which is the 12th school?
Cassandra, I think it's Villa Maria
Villa Maria, where is that?
in Buffalo.
Buffalo, oh. Oh, I didn't know about that one. Is it one of those religious schools up there?
No. No, none of them are religious. None of them are religious.
I think it's affiliated with another institute in that area.
Oh, so it,
I see.
okay. Small program, but it is, yeah. That's cool. That's very cool. So let's switch gears.
Okay, switch gears.
Let's talk about husbands.
As long as they're not lovers.
Now, I am so impressed by how you chose your husband. This has floored me no end. Okay, so here is it. At 21, you marry an entrepreneur,
Yes.
which is
And the 4
so
children were all
smart. Okay, so the 4 children and the grandchildren from that marriage, and then at 72, you marry a poet.
No, a poet, but an
A
architect.
poet, architect, kind of an artist, but not an entrepreneur.
Sanford, where are you? Sanford is the offspring of my
The
son.
offspring. Well, it's just so interesting to me that it's at the right moments of your life you knew what to choose. Tell us your secret? Because
Well-
this is so cool.
Well, at 21, I was interested in an outgoing, entrepreneurial type of person. And I found that in Franklin Linford. He was from New York. He came to St. Louis to marry a cousin and her daughter. Terry, are you here? Her daughter is here. To marry a cousin of mine. I was maid of honor. My future husband was best man. We met, the wedding took place in my parents' home. He took a smitten to me. I was a senior in college, in the School of Architecture. He invited me to New York for my Christmas vacation. My family agreed, my father agreed. On the plane, when my father put me on the plane, he said, "Ruth, don't let any of those fast-talking New Yorkers sweep you off your feet." I said, "Oh, Daddy." A week later, I am wearing a 2.5-carat diamond ring. My father on the telephone said, "We'll discuss the matter when you get home." Well, when I got home, they had already met the Linford family because they had come to the wedding at Thanksgiving time. My father's only concern was that I get my degree in architecture before I got married. I became a bachelor on Thursday and a Mrs. on Saturday.
Good for you. Okay, so the age 72, the kind of the architect artist, because you're in a different phase by then. You're again, you know yourself. I mean, we are different people at various times. So tell us about the second husband.
I was a widow of a year and a half. Is Lillian Whiterich here? Lillian, are you here? Okay. There was a conference in Italy for architects and designers. I decided to take the trip. I had no one, I wasn't going with anyone. I get to Italy and Lillian said to me, would I room with her? I said, of course. There were 634 architects and designers from all over the world, but we roomed together. During the day, we could be on our own to shop. One night we came back, Lillian said to me, I met the nicest gentleman. I'm quoting Lillian. I think you were 39. He's too old for me, but he'd be great for you. And I said, Lillian, I'm a widow of a year and a half. I'm not interested. So be it. We then went from city to city. We started in Milan. We ended up in Venice, where there was the architectural biennale. And we had to take a boat from the hotel to the biennale. On the little boat, who sits down next to me? Arthur Steinberg. We chat. He said he was a widower of 2.5 years. I was a widow of a year and a half. We chatted. During a rainy afternoon in Venice, again to shop. If anybody's been to Venice, I turned one little via. Arthur turned, I had no umbrella, my hair was dripping down me. From the other direction, Arthur turned into the same via. We saw each other, embraced. Now, Arthur embraced men as well as women, but he gave me a big, big hug. And then he said, do you have a card? And I said, yes, I gave him a card. Now, I was going on to Rome because one of my former employees was meeting me in Rome. He was heading back to Houston, Texas. I returned to Manhattan. 3 days later, I get a call from Arthur Steinberg. He's coming to New York. Could I have lunch with him? Of course. Now, my apartment is right across the street from the Metropolitan Club. So I said, Arthur, I'll meet you in the lobby of the Metropolitan Club at 12 o'clock. Well, I arrive. However, on this trip, no one got dressed up. Arthur never had a tie or a jacket. I never dressed up. I walk in and I look around. I don't know who it is. He recognized me. He had a tie and a jacket because I think Arthur had a sister in New York who must have told him. So we went upstairs, had lunch for 3 hours. Then, if you remember, Lillian, we went to an art exhibit. What art exhibit was that?
I arranged it.
Oh, you arranged it?
I made sure that both of you would come. And I also told him that he could open mine. He told me that
Open mine.
he couldn't read anybody because you were just too. Keep it.
See, that is so cool. A friend is there for you. And it's a rainy afternoon in Venice. What could go wrong?
No, this is in New York.
No, but it starts on a rainy
Oh, yeah,
afternoon
right.
in Venice. I mean, boy, the film is ready. I'm watching this thing. This is so cool. So, okay, I mean, the husbands are really, really interesting, but there's also the children. Now, you got some explaining to do, as Ricky said to her, to Lucy, because all the children are in matching pajamas in one of those things. What is that?
Okay. I had a habit. I have 4 children, all of them are here, 3 sons and 1 daughter. But I couldn't take having each one in a different pattern or design. So I dressed them alike. In the book, there's a little small photograph of the 4 children in pajamas. I have a robe on. And Jeffrey, where are you, Jeffrey? Over here?
You left.
Yes, okay.
He knew he'd leave before the pajama thing.
He's the eldest. And he said to me, Mother, why are we wearing pajamas in the middle of the day? So I said, Jeffrey, we're taking a picture for your father for Christmas. And that's why you had to wear pajamas in the middle of the day.
That is so nice. I love that story. So there's also, I mean, there's more of the family, but I would also like to ask you about your salons that you run. Because it's really interesting, the ideas
Okay.
that you bring to the design community and yourself. Let's talk about
Well, this has nothing to do really with design per se. This has to do with an organization called ICES, International Center for Integrative Studies. The president is right here, Sarah J. Brittis. One of the gentlemen on the board of directors, Bruce Cohen, is here. We have monthly salons in my apartment. ICES is also an NGO of the United Nations. It's similar to what Gertrude Stein had, but we have it on all different subjects. I don't know if any of you saw an exhibit in New York at the Jewish Museum about 3 years ago called The Power of Conversation. In the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, women couldn't have careers. Many of them were talented. Example, Fanny Mendelssohn, Felix Mendelssohn's sister. She was a composer. She was not recognized, but she would have salons in her home. They called these women saloniers. I am a salonier. The qualifications to be a salonier, well, first of all, you have to be Jewish. Secondly, you have to have these intimate conversations in your home. Thirdly, of course, they had these mansions. These were very affluent women, and I have an apartment that I can hold up to 50. But we do have monthly salons on all subjects, about peace, poverty. What other subjects can you think of? Art, music. Oh, the last one. Oh, in the book.
I came to that one night, totally missed it. It was filled with questions.
Oh, well, I
So
don't
that
know.
was the dissolution of the Soviet Empire? Yeah, yeah. And so she was
Russians,
right,
Russians.
she was very timely. She's very timely in her salons.
Oh, yes, we're always timely on the subjects. Well, last September, in fact, the picture is in the book. Last September, the speaker at the salon was the Indian ambassador to the United Nations, Sashi, who was born in India. And Sashi has written a wonderful foreword in my book. When she finished, I said, "Who are you writing about?" It didn't sound like me, but she said yes. The Indian ambassador to the United Nations was our speaker, and a picture of him is in the book with me. I don't remember, what did he speak about?
It must have been fascinating.
Well, I don't know, but I tell you one, I can tell you, if you all know of Michael Murphy.
Yes.
Michael Murphy is an architect, a young architect, 32 years old, who graduated Harvard School of Architecture. He has done some wonderful design in Rwanda, Haiti, all over the world. He has designed hospitals and schools. He spoke and had slides. He said you can design hospitals that can cure people. Anyway, so it's on all subjects.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool, the fact that he was able to get rid of TB infections by putting the waiting rooms outside, and nobody has ever thought of doing that. I mean, it's just amazing, so I'm glad you had him
Yes.
there. So, okay, so from the serious, TB is a serious thing, but then let's do another T. So you danced the tango. Tell us about tango lessons.
Yes, after Arthur passed away, I decided to take dance lessons, ballroom dance lessons. And the instructor's name was Christian Perry. I took private lessons. And after several months, he said, "Ruth, I think you're ready for competition." So I said, "All right. Well, if you know, in competitions, women have to have special outfits, dresses, hair up in a French knot, gobs of jewelry, makeup, anyway." So I was in several competitions, did very well. After a couple of those, I said, "Christian, I'm not taking lessons to be in competition. I took it just for my own pleasure." If you know competitions, you never look at your partner. You have your hand out there, your head somewhere else. I don't think there are any pictures, though. Are there in the book of?
Yeah, no, there are, and I wanted to see pictures.
Oh, yes. Dance. Oh,
With
I love
the
ballroom
tango.
dance.
That is so cool.
Well, I have taken a few tango lessons.
Yeah.
With the gentleman here. Where are you, Conway?
Where's
Conway, where are you?
there he
There he
is in the
is.
back, the
Yeah,
dance partner,
you-
fabulous,
yeah.
fabulous. Maybe you should put some tango music on and you.
No. No, I've discovered, and you don't know, Conway, but I spoke to a friend of my daughter-in-law, that because you were so tall, he's 6'4" and I'm 5'2", that I shouldn't be doing a tango lesson where my face comes up to your chest. That I should be doing tango with someone just a little taller, and you should be doing tango with a tall woman. So, but we have
She's
taken.
redesigned the dance. Okay. There's always some design going on everywhere, from the pajamas,
design.
the color core, everything is happening. I mean,
yes.
all those houses you designed for the family. I mean, they were They're really interesting the way you talk about them in the book because they all had very unique character.
Well, I have one client here. Andrea Roberts, will you raise your hand? Andrea, over there. Andrea Roberts, her picture of her dining room is in the book, but I'm very proud of it in that it is not the design from her original house. This is a new location in Piermont, but I was able to use the rug, the Louis XV type of things, and she is a blue and white person. Everything was replicated that she had in the former house. I think the only thing we bought in the new house was a coffee table, a glass coffee table. Other than that, the entire house, the new house, came from the former house. So yes, I enjoy using, if it's good design, good quality, it can last forever.
That's really sustainable in a very smart
And
way.
in the book also, I don't think Brian English is here, but there is a photograph of a house in Pound Ridge where I actually designed an extension. It was a weekend house that was done by a developer. And this couple, both in PR, I'm sorry to say, both deceased, hired me to do an extension which is much larger than the original house. So not only did I design the house, and in the book is the stairway I designed, part of the living room that I designed. I also designed some of the furniture in that house. And that's totally different. And then there's the house in Hastings, modern, Massimo Vignelli's furniture is in that. So I always say, because of my education, from Beaux-Art to Bauhaus, I'm comfortable doing anything from antiques to very modern.
So from the intellectually rigorous to the adventurous, let's talk about the time you jumped into a swimming pool, pool with your beautiful gown on. What was that about?
In 1974, is Jim Vaughan? Oh, there. Jim Vaughan. I was the chairman of student education for the American Society of Interior Designers. Unbeknown to me, however, I was being made a fellow. That's the highest honor. You have to be a member of 10 years, and you have to have a certain amount of accomplishments, and you are made a fellow. Well, I was not told about it in advance. This was in Denver, Colorado. Now, normally, it was always a black tie event, but I didn't bring anything special. I brought a long white nylon pleated thing, dress, and here I am, made a fellow. Well, after the event, they all went up to the roof of the hotel where they had a swimming pool. Here I had at the time, about this watch, a diamond wristwatch. Brian English, I'm sorry, he's not here. I mean, he lives in Stanford, he's just not in this locale. I handed him my watch. I jumped into the pool with the dress and all, but knowing that it was nylon, it would dry, hang up and on, it was dry. Yes, I
Wash and dry.
wash it dry.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
so there, I know that all of you who will read Ruth's book, you're going to find some quotes that are really inspiring. And I'd like to finish with one. She says at one point, lifelike design demands a delicate balance. It is agility.
Some water.
That gives me pleasure.
Well, design is my life. As the author here wrote in the book, I was a little girl. Design was very important. I was 10 years old. I went by myself. If anybody's from St. Louis, famous bar, bought myself a snowsuit. Why did I buy the snowsuit? Instead of having a straight zipper, it had an angle to the zipper. It was a brown wool with a knitted collar of white and orange. My mother allowed me to charge it. I went back home on the streetcar, 10 years old. Everything is design. I think you said my mind is like a kaleidoscope. Whether it's fashion, whether it's automobiles, whatever it is, it's design, design, design.
So your whole filter of the world that, as you see it, is through design.
Visual. I'm visual.
Which is a fantastic way of living a life when you think about that. So is there something else you'd like to add that we haven't covered yet?
No. I would like to acknowledge some people.
Okay.
The author and the graphic designer of my book flew in today from St. Louis. Would you stand up?
Take a bow.
Marlene Berkman, the author. Kiku Obama, the graphic designer. I would also like to introduce, you heard me talk about Michael Garabedian. Stand up, Michael. Sashi Khan, we are the closest of friends. She too, like I am, we both have a degree in architecture, but have chosen to specialize and spend our life in interiors. And she wrote the foreword in my book. Sashi, stand up, please. Last but not least here is Kerwin Kettler. The whole process of this legislation couldn't have been done without Kerwin. We were together all the time, going to Albany, hiring a PR firm, Howard Rubenstein. Oh, this I have to tell you. Howard Rubenstein, one of the largest PR firms in the state, we hired him to help us with legislation. And he did a great job. He taught us to speak fast, get our points across to the legislators, because you only have a few moments to speak to them. After I got it passed, the law passed, I happened to go to hang some pictures for him. He said, "Ruth, I never thought you could do it." I said, "Howard, I'm so glad you told me after I got it done." Well, there's lots of people here I'd like to acknowledge. But I guess, I think Jim Druckman has left. He owns this building. Is Alan Prisman here? That's Kielauer's showroom. I want to thank Alex Lerman, who works for Jim, who helped put it all together. I have thanks to so many.
So Ruth is generous,
And to you.
beautiful,
To you, I have.
amazing, inspiring, Ruth.
come on.
You are something else.
Well, let me tell you something about Susan. If all of you know Metropolis magazine, the best design magazine anywhere. In fact, I think it's sold, I've seen it on the newsstands in Florida. It's the best. Architecture, design, culture. She is the editor-in-chief, and she deserves.
Talk about generous. There you go. So here you are. We are so happy to be here with you, Ruth. And I read the book on various flights that I was taking, and I was very happy to be part of your life. And I'm still thinking that there needs to be a film, really, truly.
No.
So anyone knows a screenwriter, an agent?
No.
Anyone?
No, if there's any legislator around, I'm going to be allowed to get a practice act. What do I have to have? No, I had a goal. I wanted a practice act by the time I was 85. Well, as you know, that came and went. Now I'm getting a partial. I'm getting an amendment to the existing law. What do we want to call it, Patricia, this bill? Whatever you want. A partial Praxis Act. And I hope to live to get a full Praxis Act. Okay.
Great, well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ruth.